Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to our almost final episode of this season of The Nerd Archivist. My name is Brandon,
And my name's Dakota.
and we're continuing through the last 4 chapters of the Dead Space remake. Before we get into it, there's a couple of things, or at least one thing that I wanted to talk about that I kind of noticed prior that I think is really important that I kind of glossed over in the chapter with the Immortal Hunter, where Mercer has Isaac stasised. I kind of glossed over what he was saying, but I think actually what he's saying is really important as it plays a part in the story and understanding what's going on. So Mercer stasises him, and he's giving his typical villain monologue. What he's saying is he's like, convergence should be happening, but convergence isn't happening. Why is the marker stopping? And he's like circling around Isaac, and he looks at Isaac and he's like, it's you. You're the reason why convergence isn't happening, but why? And so he walks and he was like, Isaac, you should join us. You should help us do this. And Isaac's like, fuck you. And so, to paraphrase the fuck you, but it's something along that lines. And so Mercer's like, well, we have ways of dealing with you. And so that's when he starts the Immortal Hunter. And the stasis, of course, leaves just in time. But he brings up the idea of convergence. And I think that's important in understanding Isaac's relationship with the marker through these next couple of chapters.
Oh yeah, and we're gonna come back to that in the next episode and at the end of this episode, because this is when we get to a lot of the nitty-gritty details. This is when everything starts to pay off. But before we get into the episode, I do want to say that this, and in finishing this game recently, this is an amazing game. Like, it really is. And I know that horror isn't everyone's cup of tea. I constantly watch horror movies and sci-fi movies and whatever. And so many people that I talk to don't even know what I'm talking about. Like, just because of the genre. But there's so much to be gained from this. It is a very addicting game. The puzzles, the tension, the constant sense of dread. I mean, it sounds like going to work, but it's a lot more fun than going to work. But I will say that the story and the world, the characters, everything is very well done in the remake. I'll say again, as I said before, and the whole thing gets very well fleshed out in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, like all the big story beats, and if you've been reading all the text logs and you've been really listening to what people are saying, especially with Daniels and Hammond, like a lot of the big revelations will start coming out in these last 4 chapters. I personally really like, I think on this third time playing through, I was like starting to notice a lot of the early 2000s cringe that kind of came with it. Like, like later on in this chapter we're about to talk about, you're going to see like a soldier who's kind of like dying. He's holding his leg. And I'm like, all right, this is like the 12th person that's either off themselves or like something fucked up happens with him. And like, we're kind of in the late game. And I'm like, I get it, game. Like, this is kind of messed up and we're in a messed up situation. I kind of put that in the early 2000s cringe of like, what could be really fucked up that we could put in this game right now? I know we're going to have a couple people bang their heads against like the wall, and we're going to have someone shoot themselves in the head. Oh, we need someone who's sad, in pain, like big hurt, holding their leg, like nursing it.
Well, there's multiple versions of this throughout the game. You get multiple corridors that you walk into in the previous sections of the game and in this section of the game, and they're crawling towards you. Their legs are ripped off. I mean, we talked about Dallas in the last episode, who forcibly removed his own limbs so that he would not transform into a killing monster with the plasma cutter. But let's get into it. So the end of the last episode and the end of the last chapter, chapter 8, you are in space. You just actually ended the life of the Leviathan. I don't know if you can call it life. I mean, technically,
Yeah,
someone call PETA.
I was watching a couple of videos on this, and there's a YouTuber called Fat Brett who does the deconstruction of villainry video essays, and he did one over necromorphs. And essentially, necromorphs aren't alive. they're only moving because the marker sends a frequency that commands the body to move, but they're dead. Like, all of it, everything you see, the Leviathan, the corruption that spreads through the ship of all the mass dead bodies working themselves together, that is the marker sending frequencies that make the body do that. But none of it is actually alive. Like, necromorphs can't die because they're not alive to begin with. They're just moving, animated, dead pieces.
So just meat.
Yeah, they're just
In
moving
space.
meat pieces.
Space meat. You kill the Leviathan, and then the Valor crashes into the Ishimura. Fun fact, the Valor is 1/5 the size of the Ishimura, which is roughly the size of the town that I'm from, in space. I'm going to say that a lot. It crashes into the Valor. You get a comms from Hammond pretty immediately that says he's going to grab an exosuit and jump aboard to check it out, which he does very quickly, oddly quickly, if you ask me. And basically, you fly over the recently deployed comms array to the Valor. You enter, and you quickly realize that things are not good.
Yeah.
They got necromorphed.
Yeah. And you can hear when Hammond's like, I'm already on board. I'm heading. Wait, you hear this screeching. He's like, what's that sound? And you hear this. And it's like, of course, that's like Chen chasing him. He's like, what is that sound? Couldn't be our old necromorphed teammate following me.
They picked up Chen in the escape pod 47. We also get to meet a new friend on
the Twitchers.
the ship, the Twitchers as they're called by the fan base.
I hate
So they are dead military crew, and they have their stasis module kind of merged into their bodies, because like the way that we've been talking about the way that you can see the rigs and the clothing that people were wearing when they transformed into the necromorphs, they have their stasis modules, and that creates a really fun thing for you to play with, and also something very terrifying to deal with.
Yeah, so something I was thinking about when I was playing through this section. So like the military in this world, so everyone has like a rig link and a suit that goes with their rig link. So even military people have this too, but their military rig links and the suits attached to them have stasis modules in them. And if you think about that, that is fucking terrifying to fight against an enemy that like has the ability to slow down time and shit via the stasis module that is literally a part of their like you get a stasis module for your glove and a kinetic module, but it's for an engineering class to use, like so you can move things with it and slow things down to work on them, because we can't shut down stuff in a hyper-capitalist world. We got to keep that shit going, so you better just slow it down and hope it don't kill you.
And coming back to the design of the world.
Yeah.
On the military ship, in the same way that the Ishimura has all these motivational posters, basically, about how working is fun and supporting the group is great and working for the company is what you should be living for. Military has the same thing. It's be proud, show them your gun. It's join up and blah, blah, blah. It's absolutely
Be valor
ridiculous.
in the space.
Yes, and I actually did a Google Translate on the plaque that you see in the elevator and all the walls, and basically it translates to sky day by day. So the idea is that they're just kind of up in the air all the time.
Yep.
Which, I mean,
Come fly with
they're
us.
space
Nothing-
military. If you look around on the ship, you realize that yes, it is a destroyer class ship. It's pretty large. It's kind of the top of its fleet, but it also contains some things that your typical military ship wouldn't be carrying, such as a
Giant nuclear warhead.
yes. And if you look around, you can find some logs that describe why it was in the area.
So as you make your way through, you find out that there is an armed nuclear warhead that needs to be taken care of by you because you're an engineer. And so you got to go engineer this thing to get rid of it so something doesn't set it off. And on your way there, you find some text logs, one in particular, which is a briefing on what the Valor is doing out there. They're looking for a ship, the Ishimura, but they don't know where it's at. But they know it is on the planet with the marker, and they have been sent to dispose of said things. Now they have two. There's an unidentified person that is feeding them information. I wonder who that is.
No idea.
Put a pin in that because we're gonna talk about that in the last chapter, in chapter 12. But they have two protocols. If the infestation has already hit the ship, they got to put in protocol Eurydice, which I'm guessing is what the nuke was for.
Yeah.
They're just gonna nuke the whole fucking ship and kill everyone and everything on it. Now, if nothing, our person running sound right now gave me the thumbs up. They agree with that. Or they have the containment protocol if nothing has happened called Apollo.
Yep.
Which I don't know what that's about. Now, Eurydice or Eurydice, I think is how you would pronounce it in Greek. Eurydice and Apollo.
I don't know. I'm from the South. I just say Eurydice.
But they are obviously Greek mythological references, but I don't know. Now, obviously, they can't let anyone from the Ishimura live because you, like the knowledge of the marker is like this top class thing. Like if you know it exists, you might as well either accept the fact that you're gonna go buried in a cell for the rest of your life, or they're just gonna kill you.
Oh yeah.
Whichever one is a better tax write-off for them, probably. That won't cost them as much money. So either way, the Ishimura, their time was already numbered. And Hammond, later as you're going through, Hammond also finds the same text log, and he was like, "They knew about it. They were here to do. Our days were already numbered before we even got on the ship." Like, Hammond's mind is just blown at this point because he didn't know anything about this. He just thought he was going on a standard repair mission. Not so standard, as it turns out.
Oh yeah. So as you're fighting your way through the ship, there are some really good areas. I think it's like almost like a cafeteria area you have to go through to get a
The mess
power
hall.
battery. Yeah, the mess hall, and then that's where you get jumped by your first grouping of the Twitchers. That's a lot of fun, and I will say, I know we agree on so many things, but we like our different weapons. I loved using the Ripper on the Twitchers. It just, the saw blade really easily hit their stasis module, locked them, and I was able to quickly dismember them. And it kind of made this area a little bit easier for me, for those of you playing along.
Yeah, and if they do move really fast for you and you are having a hard time keeping up with them, just pull out the force gun and give a good blast. You'll hit everything, including their stasis module, which will freeze them effectively in space, allowing you to start dismembering them. So dear listeners, the force gun. Force gun is good gun. It's the best gun.
Use all the guns.
Use all the guns.
And save your ammunition. Let's see. Oh yeah, you also get Kyan gets in touch with Isaac, or there's some kind of log, and he mentions returning the marker yet again, and that's a big thing coming into this.
He does. He sends you a message at first while you're on the Valor to beg for you to listen, but you're like, no, you're one of those crazy unitologists, which, yeah, of course. So he's like, I don't want to listen to you. And so he shuts it off. But he comes back in, I think, 10. Towards the end of chapter 10 is when Kyan really comes in and barters with you. But yeah, Kyan kind of steps into things now.
Yeah. Everybody, this is the beginning of the end.
Mm-hmm.
And then so you get a call from Hammond, And of course, he's on board the Valor. He's got a reading on Chen's rig, and he believes him to be alive.
Yeah, so when they finally get to the area with the Singularity Core, they have like this discourse where I'm guessing the Singularity Core is kind of unstable, and so they have to stabilize it. And so there's a glass, of course, that comes down because that happens in every instance in which Isaac can't do anything to stop whatever bad is going to happen. You just have to like watch it through a screen. In which Chen then pops up, and he's like, "Shoot him, Hammond! Shoot him!" Because like Chen is a necromorph, so he's not thinking. So he pops out right in the electrical currents of the unstabilized singularity, and so he's shocked for a second. He's like, "Oh!" And Hammond looks at him, and Isaac's like, shoot him, Hammond, shoot him." And he was like, "No, I think I got a thing on his rig link. He's alive. I know he's alive in there." And he's like, "No, dude, he's dead. Shoot his ass." And of course, then Chen kills him because he was dead all along. You can't reason with a necromorph. They're not alive.
But they do give Hammond his little bit of closure in the sense that while Chen's necromorph is stabbing him through the torso, he kind of gets it together and he forcibly pushes both of them into the core and commits suicide to kill Chen as well.
Yeah, so a little bit of math. How many bodies does it take to stabilize a singularity core? Two. Two bodies. Two bodies to stabilize it, because after they die, that shit stabilizes, and Isaac is able to grab the singularity core.
So you take that, and then there's actually a really, really great cinematic scene.
Oh yeah,
where
it's
you get ejected from the ship. Yeah, it's basically a mad dash back through the ship. You can stop and you can do some stuff along the way, but it doesn't really matter. And you get ejected out of the airlock, and you have this really awesome scene of Isaac flying through zero gravity, using his jets like Iron Man, and then you basically land on the comms ray.
Yeah, and it brings you back in. And so that ends chapter 9. So because you come in and you're like, you got the singularity core, now you got to go to the crew deck to find the executive shuttle so you can install the singularity core into it.
But also, you find out that, members of the Valor have found their way into the Ishimura because you're in late game, and also, fuck you.
So, yeah, so you have the start of chapter 10, end of days. You got to get the singularity core to the executive shuttle.
You also find out in this not quite the same message, but so not only are the stronger necromorphs on board, but someone with very high clearance on the Ishimura has opened up the crew deck where the unitologists are housed.
Oh, yeah. So a couple of things as you're getting to the crew deck. So we were talking about ads in the Valor, and there are some absolutely asinine ads in the Ishimura too. Like, I don't think I talked about this before, but in the medical wing, there's like this crazy ad where it's talking about like grafting and grafting like body parts to you, and it's like, undergo a grafting if you lose a limb. Keep the work going, and it's got like that the strong worker doing like the fist pump, but his arm looks like this dead body part that's been like pulled out of a grave and just like stapled onto someone's body. Like, it looks absolutely disgusting, and it does not look like it would feel very good to have that happen to you.
So working your way towards the crew deck, you get into the break room, and there is a red circle on the ground with hands and feet inside of the circle, just kind of alternating. And then there's almost like a live feed of this like sepia toned marker on the TV. And I think Brandon has some things to say about the break room.
Oh yeah, so all through this game, you will pass through the break room, and the break room has what's called a summoning circle in it, and it is a circle made of blood with these footprints and handprints on it. And so what they represent is stomping and punching. So you got to stomp a certain number of times and punch a certain number of times. Now, kind of starting from that point, you'll start noticing on some of the walls that there will be blood stains of like punches and stomps. But the big one is going to be in the executive quarters when you get to the crew deck, because in, I think it's Captain Matthias's room or one of the first officers, but it's in the executive crew chambers, you're going to find punching and stomping marks on the walls. And you want to record that in order in succession, because if you do it, you will get this wonderful little audio clip that's like a minute and 15 seconds long. That's like the return of the Kellyan. That's like, it's to an Irish shanty, and I don't know what the original shanty is called, but it's like soon the Irish Kelly, or soon the Kellyan will come to us, and we're just kind of waiting for it. You should look it up. It's funny as hell. It's a neat little thing, but it also kind of tells you the whole ass story of like what led up to the Kellyan. Little neat Easter egg that the developers threw in. So you should find it.
I love it too. Oh yeah, So in the corner of a certain room, you can find a unitologist article, and it's an article about unitology. It's not a unitologist article, but it describes in very graphic detail what unitology is. And if you haven't figured it out now, 200 years ago, Michael Altman, a geophysicist, said that the EarthGov covered up the discovery of an artifact, which is the marker.
But a big black version of it, like it's
the bigger, blacker marker?
Yeah.
And so this actually would predate all life on Earth, because it was discovered on Earth, not on Aegis, where this story kind of started to unfold. And so they would prove that intelligent, very advanced alien life exists well before humans did. And so, because it's only 200 years before the events of Dead Space, it has become the, the galaxy's fastest growing religion. He mysteriously died.
Mysteriously.
Yeah.
As unitologists do.
I mean, that happens in real life, too. So people started to think that the marker might be key to some form of eternal life. And so the higher up unitologists kind of relay that you sort of have to die to live forever, which kind of goes into the whole everything that the game is going for. But they basically also detail in this article that the unitologists, much like the Scientologists, have a lot of very famous and very rich members. And so there is a hierarchy.
Yeah. And something too, so when you're going through the crew deck, you will, and I think it's in Matthias's room, it's either in Matthias or it's again in one of the first office rooms in that area, you will find a text log that it's to Matthias, but it's essentially saying that his death thing with unitology has been upgraded to the highest level. And so if he dies while they're taking the marker to the unitologists, or the closest unitologist pass off, he will be able to he'll have the highest burial accommodations, which is essentially stasis inside of a module that has full armament. So if anyone tries to stop it from moving, it will blow them the fuck up. I thought that was crazy that they put armaments on their coffins. But essentially, to ensure that it will go until convergence so that they can all be reunited in death. Because, unitology is also a death cult. Yep. Very blatantly a death cult.
Oh, yeah. So there are, in this article at the very end, it states that there are rumors, although unconfirmed, that unitologist corpses, when they die, get loaded onto these huge arcs.
Mm-hmm.
Like big, like Ishimura-sized ships that just float around just full of flesh, for whatever reason.
Yeah, there couldn't be like a weird purpose behind that at all.
Like a squishy Lego?
Yeah.
All right. Anyway. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Then you walk into the room that is full of all of the hooded dead
Yeah.
unitologists. Speaking of Death Cult.
So when you do get to the crew deck, the first thing you are greeted with is a huge massacre, like a bloody area, and a ring of dead unitologists around the middle island. Now here's the thing about this. So you come in and you see all these dead unitologists, and you have a room that you have to go to that will take you up to the other floors and the other dormitories. But that's hidden behind an executive key card. You have to go find the executive key card, so you got to go into the bathroom to get it. Now, when you go into the bathroom and get it, and you come back out, guess who's gonna show up? 2 infectors that are gonna start turning all of those corpses into fresh little necromorphs. Now, as we've said before, when you see a dead body, you stomp it, because you never know when those little bastards are gonna come out.
Or you rip it.
Yeah. I got a little fatigued on stomping bodies because there was so many of them. So I pulled out my trusty force gun, and it turns out it only takes 2 blasts to blow them to Kingdom Come. And so you just start blasting the shit out of them, and their little giblets will start flying everywhere, and you don't have to worry about them turning into necromorphs anymore.
Oh yeah, let's do a quick equipment check for anybody that's playing along. What were you rolling with weapon wise at this point?
I believe at this point I still had the force gun, my trusty plasma cutter, won't leave home without it, and my assault rifle, pulse rifle. We cleared that up in the last episode. Pulse rifles, not assault rifles. But really, I just force gunned and fucking plasma cutted the shit out of them.
Yeah, so for me, I was obviously plasma cutter. I had put all points that I could into damage by this point, and I also had the module for damage over time, so I could just pop some enemies from further away, and by the time that they got to me, the damage would build up, they were dead. I had a high damage and high capacity pulse rifle. I was working with a high damage and high capacity Ripper because you all know that I love that thing. And then I always had the flamethrower, just in case. And that was more of just a backup weapon. I really just rolled with those main 3 weapons.
Well, when you're dealing with dead bodies that can't die, that just keep coming back, I think really just burning it to nothing is how you do it.
Oh,
you gotta
totally.
burn them.
I mean, in a realistic sense.
I have heard that the flame wall is like the flamethrower special attack, or the alternative fire, the flame wall. Like when powered up and you have the flamethrower to its maximum potential, like that thing is fucking deadly. Especially if you use it with a line gun and you set up the traps and then you set up the firewall. You're just watching them kill themselves getting to you.
I think on my new game, I'm going to put a bunch of points into the flamethrower and really kind of go for it. I just feel like it's just area of damage and everything else. Anyway, so yeah, you go through this area. There's blood everywhere, dead bodies.
You gotta
come
destroy
back through,
tendrils.
they get reanimated. There's a whole lot going on here. There's a whole lot. You're really in a crazy spot. And then all of a sudden, after fighting your way through hell and back through hell 10 times again, you come into a little side area with some loot, and then there's a door that's just kind of open, and you go inside, and you go into zero gravity, and then you play basketball.
Zero G Ball, man. I'm so good at that game. But I played on PC where you have better control via mouse, so the aiming for Zero G Ball. But man, I'm a real Zero G Baller, guys.
I really wish that there was a whole just DLC of just multiplayer Zero G Ball or something. It's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun.
It really is.
But it's just in such an awkward spot in the story because everything is so heavy at this time. I mean, it's one of the most gory, graphic, just depressing parts of the story. And then all of a sudden you're just floating around in zero gravity, just shooting some basketball, getting some free loot.
Just just shooting the hoop sport. You get so yeah, so you do you so if you play 0G ball and you get the high score, you will unlock a series of lockers that will give you a bunch of stuff. Also in the Valor, if you they have an armory section if you go through the shooting range, which can suck because of course halfway through the shooting range, it will break down and you'll just get attacked by a buttload of necromorphs that you got to survive through. And then hopefully you got the high score before that happened or while that was happening, because once you're done, you can't go back through it again and the shooting range closes down. But in the same fashion, there is a bunch of lockers there that you unlock via your score, which I think on your first playthroughs might have some upgrades in it. Did they have any upgrades or was it just like ammo and shit?
It's ammo, credits, and
Okay.
then I think you get like a very valuable semiconductor
Yeah.
at the end of it. But it is a very good spot to just kind of relax and score some late game loot. It's a lot of fun. And then so you also get another cutscene with Mercer about convergence after that.
Yes. So when you're going through the crew deck, you run into Mercer and Temple. And so guess what? Temple is still alive, but not for long, because then Mercer's, stasises him as he do, and has another conversation with you in which you're like, fuck you, Mercer, this is really fucked up. We need to return the marker back. Like, this is wrong. And Mercer's like, you guys can't stop convergence. And then kills Temple in stasis while saying that, like, death in stasis, the pain lasts a long time.
Yeah.
And then just leaves. And it's like, wow, that's kind of fucked up.
Stasis is a slow death, he says.
Yeah.
He also tries to tell Isaac that, through convergence, you will be reunited with the people that you lost.
So this also brings in, once again, the Immortal Hunter. Because,
Our favorite.
yeah, because, if you didn't get enough of him before, he's back again. And this time, he will chase you through all of the crew decks. And all the major points that you have to go through and find things. Because, like, what you're doing through the crew deck is that there are tendrils from the corruption, which the corruption is the official name for the mass of dead flesh that is building around the ship.
That's the flesh of the story that I was talking about.
Yeah. And it's actually what was becoming, the Leviathan was building off of when you were fighting it. So you have to go find these little nodes and shoot them to destroy the tendrils that are blocking certain doors that are keeping you from getting to the executive shuttle. And while you're doing this, you are getting chased by the Immortal Hunter. Because having him in a couple of scenes wasn't enough. We needed to put him in an entire ass level to make things more tense. And poisonous gas. There's poisonous gas again.
There is the poisonous gas again. And again, I'm just gonna say, if you use the Ripper, it'll slow it down.
Use the Force gun.
Or
Use the Force gun, Luke. So you go through, you shoot a bunch of tendrils, you're trying to get to the executive shuttle, and when you get there, you run into Kyne, who now Kyne walks you out and is like, please, you gotta listen to me. And he's like, so essentially he postulates that the marker, because the marker was taken off of the pedestal from Aegis 7, that is what's starting all of this bullshit. But if you put the marker back on the pedestal, it will all go away. You have to return the marker to the pedestal. And he's like, you have to trust me. It's the only way to stop it. So, for whatever fucking reason, Isaac's like, you know what? You're right. You're a fucking unitologist and crazy as hell, but I got you. You're speaking some bars here, so you're spitting bars.
Yeah.
So let's do that.
And as you progress, well, shortly after, really, you actually get kind of one-on-one with the marker.
Yeah, so that's the thing too, is like when you get attacked by the Immortal Hunter the first time in this area after Mercer kills Temple, the marker is right there, and when you get up close to it, it starts to distort reality around you, and all the sounds, your vision, all that becomes messed up. Also, through this area, when you come actually in contact with the marker, your, at least for this mission in general, your mission icon changes to that alien script until you're done.
Yeah. Which I think is an absolutely amazing thing for them to do, to actually start corrupting the UI of the game that you're playing while you're playing it.
Also, so in our first episode, when I talked about playing through this game the first time, in my second playthrough anyways, the scene where I had to take my headphones off and stop because it was getting too much, it was during this one. It was in the crew decks. It was when everything was shaking. Isaac is full on psychosis now, and he can't quit hearing people talk to him because Mercer also talks to you through this whole ass level. Like, in his head, Mercer's not actually talking to him, but he hears Mercer in his head constantly telling him to give in to the marker. So he's full on hallucinating at this point, and the ship is shaking because it's falling apart. And when I was playing this, I was in an upstairs apartment, and someone had shut the door, or they were wrestling or doing something downstairs, and it shook my apartment, which the little bit of shake matched with the game, and I had to take my headphones off because I was like, this is too damn much for me right now. And I came back like an hour or two later. It was a lot.
So you get into some things from Kine. Again, gonna bring that name up. And also you just kind of get some lore as you go along through this section. This is when you get a lot of big details on the story. So the marker has woken something up inside the planet.
Oh yeah, the hive mind.
This is your first mention of the hive mind. And we'll come back to that in a few minutes. There's also talk of a black marker, and maybe the red marker is wrong because of the death tolls surrounding it. This really starts to blow things open. And then by the time that, like when we get through this, you're going to understand what we're talking about if you don't know. But if you do know, then you know.
Yeah. If you know, you know.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, so you agree to do Kine's thing. And so you tell Daniels that you're moving the marker to the executive shuttle. And Daniels is like, what the fuck do you mean? Why are you listening to Kine? He literally killed the captain. Which, by the way, I want to point out, like, so earlier on in the game, you do see the video, you find a video log of Kine killing the captain. He does kill him, but he doesn't do it intentionally. It is an accident. Matthias, who is a full-on unitologist psychopath, was fighting as Kine was preparing this knockout syringe to kind of sedate him, and in his fighting flung himself into the syringe, which went into his eyeball, killing him. So it was an accident.
It was
Kine
an accident.
did not like, but also Daniels, who has been in the past for her own reasons, twisting stories, is reminding you that Kine did kill the captain, but she's also twisting it. So she's like, you shouldn't trust him. Don't trust him. He killed the captain. But you're like, well, he's our best bet. I don't know about that one.
Oh yeah, so there's man, we really go through a lot right here. Yeah, we're talking about the marker, the biomass captain. So you actually get to kill the hunter.
Yeah, so this leads us to chapter 11, alternative solutions, where we have to move the fucking marker through the cargo bay to the executive shuttle.
Oh, also,
we have to put the singularity core in the shuttle.
Yeah,
first.
we have to get the shuttle set up. So you kill the hunter finally, which is very satisfying.
That sequence sucks though, but it is satisfying when you get it.
Mercer's dead.
Yeah.
Mercer dies.
So essentially you have to, when you install the singularity core into the shuttle, when you install the singularity core into the shuttle, you get ambushed once again by the immortal hunter, and so you have to stasis him behind the shuttle, and then you start the thrusters, and you just burn his ass to a crisp, and then there's just nothing left of the immortal hunter after that.
So fire might be the ultimate weapon.
Indeed. Mercer comes up and he's like, "What have you done? Everything is wrong. You fucked it all up." And then the tentacles start coming out. And he's like, "Yes, get him. Kill the infidel." But then he's like, "Wait, no, no, no." And then the tentacles take him and crush him against the marker and then take the marker. Also, the tentacles grab you and start dragging you through all the the ventilation shafts and shit that you see the necromorphs jumping out of. And once again, you have to play the shoot the node on the tendril before it kills you game. Not fun on this one.
Oh yeah, definitely. So you get word from Kine that he's en route to your the destination, and then Daniels gets in touch with you, and she is pissed about everything that's happening.
She does, yeah. She's not having a good time.
Everything. I mean, she has a good reason to.
She is also going crazy at this point. She is seeing her dead brother. I don't know that he's actually dead, but being that you only see dead people, I'm gonna guess that he's dead.
And so you're also warned that there is a huge biomass in cargo around the marker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to move through all of that. So as you're moving the marker, you both get bum rushed on all sides by necromorphs. Also, you have to shoot a bunch of tendrils that will just pop up and start smacking you around. And you got to shoot the nodes on them. They suck. It's not fun. But it's the next two chapters are literally just you are moving the marker, physically moving it from place to place while fighting necromorphs.
Yep.
You have to move the marker to the shuttle.
Well, Kine brings in the shuttle.
Yeah.
Then you have to turn gravity off so that he can land properly for whatever reason.
So you move the marker, you get it out of cargo bay, you move it and load it onto the ship. You turn gravity back on again or off again. You run back to the ship. Kine is standing outside. He's like, "Come on, get on the ship." And then,
well, it's all first names at this point. So Kendra kills him.
yes, you don't see her do it, but you see a shot fly out of the ship.
Yep.
She doesn't even shoot him in the head. She shoots him in the stomach and he dies slowly. Kendra sucks. I'm just going to say that. Her and Mercer just kill people in the cruelest way.
So, spoiler alert, Kendra Daniels has been working in secret
with EarthGov.
With EarthGov and the military. And she's been setting this whole thing up, not so much willingly, because this is just a bad situation for everyone involved. But she does actually reveal that everything going on in Aegis 7 was an experiment, and that the red marker that we've been working with is made by humans.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so she's not specifically an evil character, although I guess D&D wise she's kind of like lawful evil.
I wouldn't say lawful evil. I would say she's true neutral. She's like, she's kind of like out for her. I mean, she's out for herself in that neutral sense of like, I'm gonna use everyone that I can to get what I need. But also, well, I would say she was more like neutral evil, maybe. She's not lawful evil because she's not totally cruel. She gets crueler as she gets like, but that's like the marker. The marker just twists people to be cruel.
Yeah, but she's just so loyal to the status quo.
Yeah,
and like, you know, like
that's
she's
true.
like she should have a poster of her own on the Ishimura about doing your duty.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so you find out she has been a secret agent with the EarthGov. She is the one that's been sending information to the Valor so the Valor could find the Ishimura. She is the one that called Valor to come pick them up. It has been her all along. All the things she was saying about Daniels was all the things Daniels was saying about Hammond was just to stir disloyalty so she could manipulate the situation around it and pin the nonsense on someone that wasn't her in true secret agent fashion.
Well, I will say her journey on the Ishimura compared to Isaac, she really had like kind of a day off.
So she leaves in the executive shuttle and she's like, I think you'll find a way off this ship though, Isaac. You're one hell of an engineer. And then flies off. And she's not kidding, because not too long after, Nicole appears on his audio and is like, hey, you need to get up here so we can recall this ship.
Yeah, so she calls you. She says she's in the flight control room. And as you work your way in there, which again, this is a very fun, chaotic part of the game, there's just a full-bodied just apparition of Nicole.
That's, yeah, walking with you as you are recalling the ship. Because you can do that, engineering magic and all that kind of stuff.
Yep, and you gotta, you're not just getting the ship back, you're getting the marker back too. And so you can make us whole again.
And Daniel, she's like, God damn it. She just has this like voice of desperation where she's like, God damn it, you don't know what you're doing. What the fuck, Isaac?
Oh yeah, no, she's just totally like, she's pissed. But also, this is the guy you've been sending on your Mr. Fix-It jobs for the past like, I don't
imagine
know, 12
he's
hours.
pissed too.
He...
He's tired of fixing things now. He's gonna fix you.
So there's also some mention of things being unstoppable, that the Aegis is hungry and it must be made whole. And this is when we begin chapter 12, aptly named Dead Space.
So yeah, so one of the sequences that I think is really interesting in this one in particular, so when you get on the executive shuttle and you're heading back to Aegis, and I think it's because literally the marker is like right under his feet. He is just full on having psychotic hallucinations. He keeps dipping in and out of time. And when he wakes up, Nicole is talking to him and his ship is closer to Aegis. So the first time he gets in, they're loading up and they're about to send off. And then he does this, oh, and everything around him distorts. And then when he comes, it blacks out. And when he comes to again, he's staring at the planet of Aegis 7. And then it happens again. And he's in the atmosphere of Aegis 7. And then when it happens again, they're landing. All the while, Nicole is talking to him like, you've done such a good job, Isaac. You've really come through for us in this way. You're going to do it, Isaac. You're going to make us whole again.
And then you also get the conversation where Nicole says that it's strange, there's some sort of dead space around the marker. Something,
yeah.
Like there's a space around this object close to it, but there's just nothing there. But this object has some kind of an effect, which we obviously know by this point.
Yeah. So you get to Aegis, and once again, much like in Chapter 11, you have to unload and move the cargo, which is the marker, through the cargo bay and back to where the pedestal is. And I want to say that there's a lot of interesting things in this area, but it's really just a rinse and repeat of Chapter 11.
Yeah, you're hitting terminals, you're killing necromorphs.
Yeah.
In the moment, it's fun. You're dismembering things, you're stomping bodies, you're doing the good stuff.
Yeah. You know, and you get a couple of text logs that tell you what's going on in Aegis 7, but you kind of know what's happened in Aegis 7 now. It's not really a big secret. Like, yeah, everyone got fucked up because the marker was on that planet. So you get the marker, last horde comes at you while you're trying to put the marker back on the pedestal. You take care of them, and now the gravity. So here are two things with this part. So you put the pedestal back on, but something happens, and it wasn't what they thought it would happen. Like a huge pulse goes out, and Isaac is like, oh, my head. And then the gravity tethers start giving out. So he's like, I need to go fix the gravity tethers. And when he goes to do that, Daniel shows up again and has another big... So there are two big revelations that happen in this point. One revelation is that Nicole, who you've been thinking you've been talking to this entire time, was not actually Nicole. It is, of course, Elizabeth Cross. Now, in the mining section, if you turned on near the gondola, you turned gravity off and flew over to where Nicole was, you'll find an audio log where you're having that same conversation, but it's Elizabeth Cross, and she's like, yeah, okay, cool. She's like, I don't know why you're calling me Nicole, but all right. She kind of goes with it, but
We've
also,
all been there.
yeah. But also, Elizabeth Cross thinks you're Temple. And so the entire time when she's talking about Temple, she thinks you're Temple. Which is kind of weird because Temple doesn't really die until the end of chapter 10.
Yeah,
think,
but I think they lost communication.
Yeah, she thinks he's dead anyways. And so
he did go off to try and save Mercer, so.
And so she kills Cross because she, after realizing Temple is dead, Temple is not alive, and you were never Temple, she effectively has nothing else to live for, and she's like, just kill me, there's nothing left for me. So she does, because that's what Daniels does. She shoots her like 3 or 4 times. She goes over the railing, and she takes the thing and removes the marker from the pedestal. Here's the thing. The marker never stopped anything when it got on the pedestal. The marker only broadcasted further when it was on the pedestal. So that's why everything got super distorted. And when she removed the marker back off the pedestal, that pissed off a certain sentient entity laying underground.
The hive mind.
So this section is funny. I texted this to Dakota after I finished it. So he's like, I can beat Daniels to the ship, and then slowly trudges through the filth on the ground because it's got that stuff on the ground where you can't run. You have to like slowly walk through it, all the while looting crates along the way. And it's like, at this pace, you're really not going to catch up to Daniels. Like, you're just kind of moving slow. It's kind of an oxymoron.
Yeah, it's got. It's also just setting you up for something, and that is going to be the big final boss fight.
Hive
with
mind.
The hive mind. Yep. And it starts out with at this point in the story, a very, very satisfying death for a certain beloved character, Kendra Daniels.
Here's the thing. No one dies peacefully or calmly in this game. Everyone dies a very sad and painful and lonely death. It's kind of like watching The Last of Us, where everyone that dies in The Last of Us just dies in the most horrible way. That's just sad and depressing. And Daniels is no different. As Isaac confronts her as she's getting onto the executive shuttle, the hive mind shows up, smacks her the fuck off of the ship. And as she's writhing, Isaac is like, take my hand, Daniels. But then a giant tentacle smashes her. And here's the thing. You see her body just flatten against the concrete and then get smeared off of the concrete as it effectively flips it into a bunch of crates. And then the hive mind shows up. A Leviathan +3. It's fucking huge.
It's definitely huge. And you fight it from a platform.
Mm-hmm.
And it pretty quickly kicks off. And pretty much like any of the other boss fights, or any of the mini boss fights, or the regular fights in Dead Space, basically any fight, you have to figure out what the fuck you have to do to actually end this thing. It's not too difficult, but it's not easy.
So I'm going to tell you, this, of all the instances, this is the instance where you want to use the line gun on, because this motherfucker moves a lot. And so first it has a bunch of like little glowing nodes on its face that you want to hit. Meanwhile, it's also slamming its tentacles down at you while you're doing this. It is easier to use the line gun because the aiming is minimal and you can just hold the trigger down and just shoot a line beam and just move it around until you destroy the nodes. It gets a little harder when you're using actual guns because it moves around so goddamn much. It is hard to actually hit the nodes. But you have to shoot those nodes on the face. And then when you shoot the nodes, it'll come down and then it'll start spitting lines of acid at you while, of course, smacking you around with its tentacles. It'll do this a couple of times and open up bigger nodes in its stomach, which you have to kill, which once again, the line gun of all the points, this is the one where it will destroy those nodes so goddamn quickly. It's like recently I've been playing Resident Evil 4 in VR, and it's kind of like using the fucking semi-automatic rifle or the Killer 9, I think is what it is, but the Magnum gun that just kills everything in one hit because it's like the attack is like 22 in power. So it's just like instant kill in everything. That is the line gun. The line gun just kills it in its burst. You just burst it and you have it's like it has a phase for each of those bursts. So you burst a bubble, you burst a node on its chest, and then it starts spewing acid and smacking you around again. And then it opens up, and it's just funny because it literally hangs over with its chest open. Like, here, shoot my nodes.
Yeah, I will say, out of the way that the zero gravity fights with the Leviathan were redone in the remake, the Hive Mind boss fight they didn't translate that as well.
Yeah,
it's definitely one of those, like, you know,
easy gimmick fights.
Yeah, and it was a thing in the games back then. I get it. I mean, Halo was absolutely fucking owning the fucking game back then, and that's how all the boss fights were. It's just there's a big thing. It has a giant health bar. All you got to do is just chip away at the health bar, and it's just kind of the spectacle of the matter. But I mean, you know, story wise and everything else, it fits lore wise.
Yeah. So you kill all the nodes on its chest, and then it picks you up by its tendril. And I don't really know what it does because I didn't really want to go through this boss fight again. So I just used all of my ammo to shoot that one fucking node on its face. So I don't know what it does if you fail in that. If he like eats you, slams you on the ground, but effectively you have one more node to shoot on the face. And if you shoot it and kill it, it dies for real and it drops you on the ground, like face plants into the platform, and it goes down. So while you're going through chapter 12, you have the understanding that the payload, the giant fucking rock that got ripped out of Aegis 7, the tethers, the gravity tethers are busted, and it is coming down very like a giant ass mountain colliding back into the planet again, and you have to escape the planet before it hits the ground.
Yeah, that's, again, going back to the Ishimura being a planet cracker. It cuts out a massive chunk of this planet. Mm-hmm. And I mean, like, not even Mount Everest massive. I mean, like 100 Mount Everest massive. Fucking huge. A big piece of this planet down to the fucking quick.
Like 7 Mount Everests amassed into an ultimate Mount Everest. Plus 1.
In space. Yeah, you basically get through this boss fight. You haul ass to the ship. Isaac climbs in, gets it booted up just in time, and as everything is falling apart, he zaps off into space. And then you get your cutscene.
Yeah. So, real quickly though, before we get into the cutscene, one thing I thought was really funny. This time around, after I killed the Hive Mind, I took my time and just ran around collecting all the items, the stasis packs, the health, the ammo and stuff, because that carries over in New Game Plus. You know, it's funny because everything is calm while you're collecting them, but the minute you cross that threshold, everything starts getting crazy. Rocks are raining down on you in the cutscene. You're like tripping over your feet. It looks like you're barely able to get into like the shuttle and take off. But for that little bit, everything's just strangely calm despite the fact a giant mountain is like falling on your head. It's like, well, you know, I'll just take my time and pick up all these little items. So we get the cutscene. So here's the thing. When you play the game the first time, it doesn't matter if you do all the side content or not, you will get the same cutscene, which is you are just like, wow, whew, you're sitting down, you're having a moment where you take a deep breath. You start the video, again of Nicole, but then you kind of stop it, and I don't know if he like deletes it or not, but he has this look of like, what the fuck? Because when Daniels was talking to you before, he made you watch the whole video, and it turns out that that video that you were watching of Nicole was her suicide video, that she had died after coming in contact with Mercer because she just had too much exposure to the marker and it just made her go crazy, and so she just lethal injected herself in this video to him. And so he looks at it realizing everything has been like a lie and turns it off, and just as he's about to be calm, he hears this voice, and it's Nicole, and she's like, I wish I had someone to talk to. And he like looks over, and her dead body is sitting in the cockpit, and she like looks over at him, and then there's a big jump scare where she jumps on him, and that ends it. So here's the thing about New Game Plus, and you do want to play through New Game Plus. In the next episode, I'll talk about that because I want to actually give you a chance to play through New Game Plus if you're playing with us. So you have the option to play through it before you listen to this last episode. Because the last episode, if you go through New Game Plus and you find all the marker pieces, it gives you a different cutscene that's really telling to sets up the events of Dead Space 2.
Yeah, so the online community in general seems to agree that the New Game Plus, and this is specific to the remake of the game, the New Game Plus ending is canon, and it really does, story-wise, really set up the universe and why the games kind of connect the way that they do.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that is the end of Dead Space. That is the game. So the next episode that we will sit down and talk about how we felt about playing through the game. We'll talk about overarching story structures, some of the more philosophy in it, the cosmic horror side of it, along with the existential horror, because a lot of the horror that we bring upon ourselves is through an existential crisis of who are we and where do we come from, and our attempt to remake the thing that we think is connected to us ultimately brings us to our doom. I think that's an interesting concept as well. But we will have another episode out in 2 weeks, and until then, this is your host, Brandon.
And Dakota.
We are signing off. Bye.
Goodbye.